You're listening to Prosperity Report, Love and Money Podcast, the relationship podcast that helps you feel more confident financially and romantically. We do this by giving you actionable ideas to help you stop comparing and start repairing your mindset, your money, your relationship, and your life. I'm your host, Kanae Corder, best-selling author, international speaker, hypnotherapist, and financial therapist. Let's grow with the flow together. Enjoy the show. Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you ever wonder if your brain is secretly plotting against you? I've spent my entire career equipping people with a system to untangle the negative messages and programs imprinted by society. These messages block you from success, the success you were meant to have. And right now, whether you know it or not, your brain is standing in the way of that success. If your business has not reached the level of success that you would like it to, go ahead and take my free assessment. I'll walk you through the questions I ask every person I work with in my clinical practice. This assessment will help you recognize if you're stuck and give you the answers needed to get unstuck so you can finally have that success you have worked so hard for and know you were meant for. So go ahead, go to kanaecorder.com/coach and take the free assessment. You'll get a free membership to the Prosperity Club and one free course. You can upgrade later if you like. For now, join the club by taking the free assessment. Find out if your brain is plotting against you and what you can do to reprogram your mindset, your money, your business, and your life. Click the link below or go to kanaecorder.com/coach. I'll see you there. If you like Marie Konti's show on Netflix, Tidying Up, you are in for a treat, my Prospros. Today, we're going to talk about decluttering. And we have Leann Pruett, the founder of Let's Ace Your Space, here to help us. She is on a mission to help entrepreneurs simplify decluttering so that it no longer blocks their momentum or keeps them from reaching their true heart's desire. If you want to reach your goals, you've got to declutter. And today we're going to talk about that with Leann. Now, Leann retired from her day job of almost 30 years in 2017 because she wanted to make an impact. She was tired of that 9-to-5 grind, and she really wanted to help people live a more simplified life. Decluttering, organizing, and space planning is her passion. And that's what she's going to share with us today. Some actionable tips that help you declutter your life and your business so that you can reach your ultimate goals. So, my Prospros, please join me in welcoming our guest today, Leann. Hey, Leann.
Hi, Kanae. How are you doing? It's so good to be here with you.
Thank you for being here. I was so excited after we worked together on your project that I was like, we've got to get her on the Prosperity Report. So thank you for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm really excited to do this. I had such fun working with you too. That was great.
Cool. So the first question that we ask every guest is, what is your idea of prosperity?
Oh, Kanae, I love that question. I think my idea of prosperity is actually having the resources, having the physical and mental bandwidth and whatever to just do what I want to do in the world and to just live the life that I want to live. I would say that true prosperity is the ability to be in an abundance mindset, not in a scarcity mindset, and just know that I have what I need to be able to do what I want.
Yes, I know, right? And I like that you said, a couple of things I like that you said were have the bandwidth, because that decluttering has a lot to do with the bandwidth. So
Yes,
we're definitely going to tie that back in. And I love this idea of the abundance or prosperity mindset rather than that lack mindset, because that also ties into clutter. Am I
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you, the expert, what is the definition of clutter?
So, I have actually kind of a different definition of clutter. To me, clutter is anything that gets in the way of you and your goals, your dreams, what you want for your life. So that's a very broad definition. It can take into account physical clutter, mental clutter, financial clutter,
Mhm.
just really anything that gets in the way and stops you from what you want. Now, of course, I work a lot with physical, paper, and digital clutter, but I also work with mental clutter. I think that all of that just sort of just piles into the equation of what's stopping you from where you want to be.
Yes, you do. And so, guys, just so you know, Leann did a series about 4 or 5 months ago, and it was all about clutter. But she and I talked about money clutter, like your financial clutter, and how that's holding you back. So I love how you tie it all in because it's anything that's blocking you from your goals. And here on Prosperity Report, we call those blocks. So
Okay.
so, guys, blocks and clutter are basically the same thing because what I hear you saying is the clutter gets in the way. It actually creates obstacles for you and you can't reach your goals because of all the clutter. You can't get around it.
Exactly. Exactly. Mhm.
Mm. So, how did you get so interested in decluttering? How'd you get started?
I think my first realization that clutter was something that could be problematic was probably occurred when I was in graduate school. I had like a one bedroom studio apartment and I was anything but organized. I had clutter everywhere. It was just on every surface, in the bedroom area, the living room area, the kitchen, whatever. And I started seeing this guy. I was dating this guy that was very meticulous. I mean, he didn't have a hair out of place. Everything was in place in his house and his car, and he was very meticulous. So I instinctively knew that his way was better than my way because, when he would come over, I would just take everything and just shove it wherever I could. I would put it under the bed. I would put it in the drawers, even in the oven, in the kitchen. If there was stuff out in the kitchen, I would like shove it in the oven. And, fortunately the oven was never on when I did that. And I don't know why I thought this was a sustainable way to do things. I don't know why I thought he wouldn't pop by one day unannounced. And that's exactly what happened. He came by, I think I was sick. Maybe I had a flu or a cold or something. And he was very nice. He brought me some chicken soup. But, Kanae, I could tell when he walked in that apartment that he was just shocked. I mean, the look on his face, you could just tell that he had never experienced me in this way and had experienced the clutter. So he was
Mm.
very nice. He stayed for a little while, left the chicken soup and then left. And I think maybe we had like one more coffee date after that, but we basically stopped dating after that point. Now,
Mm.
was it all the clutter? Probably not. I'm sure that there were other extenuating factors, there are other things there. But I knew that the clutter was just a huge problem there. And I knew that it was a huge factor for that. And at the time I decided, I'm not going to let something as stupid as all this mess and this clutter do something like that again, like cost me a relationship with somebody that I like. So I started at that point in time to really kind of try and figure out how to declutter things and organize things. And of course, there were tons of false starts and tons of backsliding. I'd get it decluttered and then I'd get cluttered again. I realized through all of that, what to do and what not to do. And then another thing that was really impactful for me, I remember my parents, my mother, one day we were driving around and she drove past this really pretty, really cute house. And she said to me, oh, Leann, I love that house. That would be the perfect house for your father and I. And now, Kanae, I knew that she would never go in and look at this house or wouldn't buy this house. And the reason for that was they lived in a 50s ranch and they had this basement that was just, it was so cluttered. It sucked us into a black hole every time we went down in that basement to try and find anything. It was
Mm.
like dirty and dingy. It had like every TV and laptop they had ever had. It had strange, really crazy furniture from like long dead relatives. There was even a gas stove down there, just like in case the power went out. So yeah, it's like really, and that basement stopped them. They just could not, they really did want to get into another house that had like a smaller yard and that was all more on one story and that they could really enjoy themselves in. And they just couldn't do it because they were stopped by that basement. So I helped them figure out how to declutter and get that basement cleaned up. And they actually were able to move into their dream house. What that taught me at the time was that sometimes when you have larger areas of clutter, how you can actually take a look at that and break it up so that it's not so overwhelming for you. So between those two things, I always loved decluttering and organizing and helping people with that. So a couple of years ago, I retired from my day job and I started doing this more full-time, helping people. I started Let's Ace Your Space, and that's what I do.
That is so cool. So Let's Ace Your Space is basically your retirement project because you had a full career and you took that time that you used to use working for someone else to start your own business.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's really cool because so many listeners are wondering how they're going to transition from what they're doing now to what they really love or what they're really good at. So many good nuggets here. So first, this didn't start out as your, let's say, talent. You built this into a talent. And so many people are afraid to start. We talk about blocking your goals, that clutter. There's all of these beliefs that if they're not already good at something, then they can't start a business doing it. But you weren't necessarily good at it. You learned, you became good at it, and then you transitioned that into a business, which is beautiful. And then not only that, you have that story to tell that you transitioned your parents. They were holding on to this clutter to helping them release that clutter so they can move in to their dream house and away from the clutter. And then also what I heard you saying is that you then found like this newfound love and passion as you moved into another phase of your life.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting, Kane, I have talked to people who are just naturally uncluttered, decluttered, naturally organized. I was not that person. I had to figure it out for myself and figure out what went on. So yes, it's a skill I built up over time.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you share that with us because I think that the clutter that I work with the most is the mental clutter. And clutter does something on two sides. But what I see is that one, clutter affects us in one way as it keeps us mentally from moving forward. We can't move forward because of the mental blocks. But then once we let it go, just being able to look back on that story that we had and see that we let go of something, we release something, and the freedom that we have on the other side of it. That's what I see when I work with patients in my office, and it's so beautiful, or virtually. So tell me, what have you seen? How does clutter affect us?
Well, you know what? I have to point out, like, I picked up a couple of nuggets there as well. You mentioned the mental clutter. And, so often I would just even say, anytime you have physical clutter, you've also got some mental clutter going on upstairs as well. And you have to attack it on two levels. You have to attack the mental clutter as well as the physical clutter, mainly because what happens is you've got a mindset that is allowing this clutter. And that mindset has to shift to a mindset where you can achieve the organization, where you can get rid of the clutter and you can keep it that way. There are so many ways that clutter affects us. First of all, it's just like a huge stressor. The other day I heard somebody say that recently from the AMA, the American Medical Association report, saying that like stress was the reason for 90% of doctors' visits. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know it's like way up there. It takes up physical and mental bandwidth and it distracts us. It's very hard to achieve a goal that you want when that clutter is in the way, when you're like, oh, but I can't do this. Maybe your goal is something as simple as you want to entertain more. You want more people over for dinner. well, I can't do that. This house is a mess. I've got to deal with this clutter.
Mhm.
Or, you get so distracted on the clutter that it's time that you could be spent forwarding your goal and your dream, but you're spent distracted by the clutter. Whether or not you're actually dealing with the clutter, it's a distraction.
Yeah, this is so good because if you're not dealing with the clutter, let's say it is physical clutter first,
Mm-hmm.
right in front of you, you want to have more company, you want to entertain more, but that means you have to get rid of the clutter, which maybe you're not ready to execute on. So it's the clutter is isolating you.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or it causes you to always have to go to the other person rather than being able to entertain right in your own home, which if that's important to you, then that means there's a void there.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So not only does clutter isolate us, clutter can also create bigger voids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When it comes to acknowledging first, like how do you know you have clutter?
Well, that's a very good question.
People who have clutter, they kind of just think that's just the way it is.
Well, and if you go back to my definition of clutter is like anything that gets in the way of what you want in your life and your goals and your dreams. First of all, I really think that people really need to know what their goals and dreams are. You want to know what you're going for so that you can kind of identify what is in the way of that. And also, I will say about clutter that everybody has a different clutter threshold. What's clutter for some people is not clutter for other people. So some people have a higher level of what bothers them than others. So you really have to look at, is something stopping me and getting in the way of what I want to do? What do I look around and what do I see in this space?
That is so good because, and so true. Basically, I would be on the side of a minimalist. Like, I do not have to have a lot of stuff. And to me, it's like easy for me to think something is cluttered. If you
Mm-hmm.
leave just a few too many bills, if you hang just a few too many pictures on the wall, or you have just a few too many figurines, I'm like, oh, so cluttered. Can we?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Where other people I'm around, they're like, no, this is decoration. I'm like, what? There's no such thing. Like everything has to have a use in
Yes,
my life.
got
Otherwise,
it.
I don't want it.
Yes, got it.
Like, no, why are we sitting this egg here? Like this egg does not have a purpose. This egg
Egg.
is pretty, but no.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point that you make. So for couples, that can become kind of a conflict, but also for business partners, what one business partner may see as clutter in the business, another partner may see as this is just the way it is. Now, I bring that up because although I said I don't like physical clutter, when it comes to my work, I like to take on a bunch of projects at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I really have to coach myself into like, stop it, lady, like one thing at a time. You're not multitasking these projects because that's a form of clutter too. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A cluttered schedule, a cluttered to-do list, too many projects. Anytime you can simplify, and I think when we're talking like projects or schedules or something, if you can set like, all right, these are the three things that I want to accomplish today, that just kind of keeps you from running around. And again, you're distracted, you're not getting stuff done. You're like, oh, let me work on this project. Oh, let me do a little on this project. Oh, let me do a little on that one. So
Mm-hmm.
that again, it's those distractions showing up and you're not progressing with any of them. So you have to be careful about that is just as much clutter as any of the rest of this.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I can be such a good coach in that area because you teach what you need to learn, they say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I get fascinated by a new project. So the middle of a project is not that fun for me, the
Right.
beginning and the end. And so the middle, I can get distracted. So I really have to work to declutter my project files because if I don't, they can get cluttered and my schedule can get cluttered for that reason. So it's really the projects, and then the projects end up cluttering my schedule. And then I don't have time for fun or leisure time or to do nothing, which that sounds so foreign.
Right.
And I'm sure
Right.
to many business owners, doing nothing sounds foreign. But sometimes you need that space, that white space, just like you need that white space on your desk or on your wall. or on your
Absolutely.
floor.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yes. So I have a couple more questions for you before we wrap up. So
Okay.
I want to know about the best way to declutter for lasting change. And the reason why I asked that, because here on Prosperity Report, we always like this to be something that they can listen to by the end. They have an actionable idea that they can use today. Now,
Sure.
after you get done, I usually wrap it up in like a start, stop, and continue. So this is what you can start doing, this is what you can stop doing, and this is what you continue doing. So what
Okay.
would you say is like the best way to declutter for lasting change, like not just today and then it's
Right.
back, tomorrow it's just a mess again.
Right. So I actually have my ACE system to help people declutter. A is for assessing, C is for clearing, and E is for empowering. Now, one thing that I think that's a good idea for everyone to do, if you've decided that you've got some cluttered spaces in your home or your office and that you want to declutter those. A lot of people, a lot of decluttering experts will say, oh, just pick the first cluttered surface you come to, or just pick a drawer, just pick a cabinet. That has merit, but I think that it's much more powerful if you actually step back and really assess what you've got in your space and the different spaces that you've got. Ask yourself a few questions. Ask where are the biggest pain points with the clutter? What would make the most difference? Again, if you have a real dream for hosting dinner parties and your dining room is cluttered, what's the easiest to declutter? When you start taking a look at the spaces in your house about, what would make the most impact for you, some spaces should start showing up more than others. And I would say if you've got a couple of spaces that you're thinking, okay, these two would be the best place to start, what you want to do is you want to start with the space that is easier to declutter,
Mhm.
because decluttering is like building up a muscle. If you start with the easier one first, you'll get an easier win, and then it'll be
Mhm.
easier to go on to harder spaces. I'll just speak just a little bit about how to kind of avoid some overwhelm with clutter. When you've decided a space that you want to declutter, take that space and break it up into little tiny subspaces. The smaller, the better. If you're doing your kitchen, do a cabinet or do a drawer, and actually schedule in like one or two decluttering sessions a week for an hour or two, and declutter that little subsection completely. Pull everything out, get it kind of cleaned out, put in what goes back. If they're still going to remain in your space, but they're not going to live there, put them where they live. The things that are going out, put them somewhere where they can go to recycling or to donation, something like that. Now, the thing that I do want to mention that you guys can absolutely start doing today, and this is easy and it will help you maintain your space without building more clutter, and it will keep you decluttered once you get decluttered, is doing a daily decluttering sweep. And what we want to do with this for lasting change is we want to do everything we can to make this as habitual as possible. So I tell the people that I work with to pick a really short time frame, 10 to 15 minutes, and you'd be really surprised what you get done in that amount of time. And set the timer so that you're not constantly looking at the clock. Am I there yet? Whatever. Let the clock and the timer take care of the time, and you take care of the decluttering. Then I want you to go through and, of course, first address your mail. That comes in every day, and that's a huge source of potential clutter. Get rid of the catalogs and the junk mail immediately. Put the bills where you put them. Have a designated space for those. Anything else, to deal with the papers accordingly. If there's something you want to remember, put it in your calendar and get rid of that paper. Then go through your space, do like a common area sweep. And anything that's there that's, if it's trash or recycling, put that where it goes. If it's something out of place, magazines, maybe you were sitting on the sofa and the pillow's on the floor. Maybe you've got some cups and mugs in there that belong in the kitchen. Put things back where they belong. If maybe you've got a jacket lying around, hang that jacket up. Take it 10 to 15 minutes to sort your mail and do a common area sweep. And that will just do loads to keep your clutter down. If you've got cluttered places you need to declutter, then it's keeping the clutter down. You're not adding clutter while you're decluttering those spaces. And then once you've decluttered everything, you have something to maintain that.
Nice. Yes, those definitely sound like actionable items. So what I heard you say was start with the easiest one, like a quick win. Start there. And then ask yourself a few tough questions like, where is the pain? Like, where in my life am I cluttered that is causing me pain? That's a great question to ask. Really go deep and get some awareness around that. And then you said, start doing a daily sweep. So at the end of the day, 10 or 15 minutes, set the timer and just go for it and sweep your house or office, whatever it may be, so that you get that clutter away. But what I also hear you saying is stop just putting things anywhere. Like have a place or a space for these things. And also stop being lazy. You just take a few seconds to put it in that place. Because one of the things that I notice is that I do have to talk myself into taking that extra step. Like maybe I have my jacket and instead of when I come in the house, instead of just putting it on the couch or on the ottoman, I can actually hang it up. But sometimes it does take some like self-talk for me to go, hey, just take 2 more steps, open the closet, put it in there. Do you want to do it now or you want to do it later? And so, I'll add this other stop then. So stop putting off what you can do today till tomorrow, because that's really what's happening too. You're saying, I'll just do it later. But how later? Later when you have 10 things stacked up, So that's another stop. So continue. I guess I would say, I don't assume that you're not doing something well. I'm assuming that you've probably got it down somewhere. Like maybe your briefcase is neat, or maybe your car is neat. You've heard me say how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's likely that a lot of your areas are cluttered, especially if you're cluttered mentally. But I'm guessing that you're good at something. So I'm going to say continue that and pay attention to that. Because like when it comes to confidence, which is what I teach the most, I've noticed that people are confident in one area, but then in all these other areas, they're not. But they may have this one place that they're confident. So I'm going to say clutter is probably similar. If there's anywhere in your life where you have been successful with decluttering, then let that be the example to how you approach these other areas.
That's such a great summary. One thing I do want to kind of add to that, when I was talking about that daily declutter, what I want you to do, I want you to try and standardize it as much as possible so that it becomes a habit. And when you're talking about continuing and things that you do well, you can use like a little task called habit stacking. Maybe you are the person that when you come in, you always hang your coat up. So you always do that. Then stack doing the mail and the rest of this declutter sweep on top of that so that it makes it easier for it to become habitual.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you for that. So I have this question that I love to ask. What is the best business advice you've ever received, or the advice you wish somebody would have told you?
Oh my goodness. I've received so much good advice. And I think that probably one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received was that you need to act like a professional. I'm kind of putting professional in quotes there. But what I'm saying is like, don't do what you feel like. A lot of times you may feel like doing something, or maybe someday, I don't feel like getting out of bed and working on this, or I don't feel like doing these things. It doesn't matter what you feel like. It matters, what your stand is and what you have said you're going to do. And just get out of the way of how you feel and instead really look at where you want to be, how you want to serve people, how you want to impact people, and get yourself out of the way and go and do what it is that you said you were going to do and what it is that will move your business or your goal, whatever your goal is, forward.
Yes, I like that. Let your values lead, not your emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, because sometimes our emotions are void of our values or in opposition of our values just because of how we feel in that moment, especially if we're triggered.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's true.
I like that. So if somebody's listening and they're like, hey, I want to know more, how can they reach out to you?
So I help people in a number of ways. Like I said, my company is called Let's Ace Your Space. I do have a website and a blog, letsaceyourspace.com. I have a couple of Facebook groups that you can get a lot of information in. One is my Let's Ace Your Space Facebook group. And then I have another brand new Facebook group that is geared specifically to entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs. It's called From Cluttered to Clients. And I do Facebook Lives, and I give a lot of information and training in both of these Facebook groups. I also, how I work one-on-one with clients. I'm a clutter coach. I guess I should be a declutter coach, but I like clutter coach. I like the alliteration there, clutter coach.
Yeah.
And I do have programs. I don't have any that I'm running right now, but I'm working on a couple that will launch a little later this year. So I do have group programs, but what I really love to do is work with people one-on-one, usually for a 3 or 4 month period to really help them bust through exactly what they've got going on and get them to where they want to be.
Awesome. And so when you say you work with people, is that virtually or is that in your home?
It's virtually, but I start with what I call is like a little VIP day. Sometimes we do that virtually, or sometimes I actually come to you. We look at your home, we do the assessing, we do some mental exercises, we take a look at your schedule, do a schedule audit, because you really need to know what's not serving you in your schedule and declutter that. And I get you set up with a system for how to handle the physical or the paper or the digital clutter in your life. And then the rest of the coaching are Zoom calls during the week. I also have a Voxer app. You can communicate with me with Voxer, that sort of thing.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leann. I'm so glad you shared all this great information with us, mental declutter, as well as physical declutter, and really helping us understand where it kind of comes from, but then what we can do about it slowly, one step at a time, one habit at a time. So I really want to thank you.
You know what? Thank you, Kanae. I've had such a good time talking with you today.
Well, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. So we're going to have to get together for one of those schedule audits.
Yes. We're going to audit out some of those projects you've got going on there. Exactly. We'll put them on the back burner for a little while so you can get to them a little later.
Yes, I'm getting better at it, but I still need some help because I do love a new project.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and we will talk with you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hold there, Prosperos. Stay tuned for our 5-minute activation. It's time for 5-minute activation. A quick financial therapy session to get you activated and on your way to increasing the love and money in your marriage. So can I get 5 minutes of your time? Just 5 minutes for a financial therapy activation. Hey there, my prosperity pros. On today's 5-minute activation, I'd like to talk to you about prioritizing. Prioritizing is knowing when to do what. You need clarity. Here are a few questions you can ask yourself to determine what to do first, second, third, fourth. You get it. But before I go there, I'd like to say that a lot of times I see people will describe themselves as procrastinators, when really what's happening is that they're just not prioritizing. Ask yourself a couple questions. 1, what's most important? Now, when I say most important, I do mean logically, but there could be some emotion that get in there, and we're going to talk about emotion in just a second. Then think about what's most time sensitive. Is there a deadline associated with any of these options you have? And if there is a deadline, what is it going to cost you to miss the deadline? Which brings me to the next one, cost involved. Do you lose money by not taking action? Do you gain money by not taking action? And is it going to cost you money if you don't take action? Or maybe it costs money and you just don't have it yet. You've got to save up for it. And maybe it's the quick win that you need. Now that's where it goes into emotions. Normally, or typically, I would say, lean towards logic. Logic over emotions. But when you need a quick win, when you need that emotional fuel, that passion to push you through all the other things on the priority list, then go for the quick win first. For example, when I am in counseling or coaching, someone may come to me with a existential crisis that's happening right now in the here and now, but they may also have a childhood trigger that needs to be healed. So do we work on the existential crisis or do we work on the childhood trigger? Depends. Is the childhood trigger causing the existential crisis, or are they two separate things? If they're separate, then the existential crisis might be the immediate need, and once you heal from that, then going back to the childhood need. Or another example is in financial therapy, sometimes people come with debt and we prioritize paying off that debt. Now, the books will say, pay off the thing with the highest interest rate. And that's because that's the logical thing to do. But to get a quick win, you'd have to take the emotional choice. And that emotional choice is paying off the balance that's smaller. So let's say that you have a card that's $5,000 and it has the highest interest rate, and you have a credit card that's $500 and it may not have the highest interest rate. And you've got about $200 or $300 to put towards your debt. Well, if you're putting $200 or $300 towards that $5,000 payment, it's still going to take you quite a while to pay it off. But if you're putting $200 or $300 towards the $500 payment, just like that, 2-3 months tops, and you win. And that can give you the fuel you need to pay off the other debt. So whether it's an existential crisis, a childhood trigger, debt you're paying off, a task list for the day, or a list to build your business, it doesn't matter. What you're going to do is find clarity. Determine what's most important, what's most time sensitive, what are the costs involved, and where can you get a quick win to give you the fuel you need to keep going. So prioritize to bring more peace your way. And that's our 5-minute activation for today. I'll see you sooner. Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you want more love and money conversations, subscribe to this podcast. Also, tell your friends about us. I'll see you next episode. But in the meantime, head on over to KeneQuarter.com for more tips, tools, and resources. And go ahead and leave us a comment if you like. We'd love to hear from you. This show is not to replace professional counsel. The best advice comes from a professional you know. The topics discussed in this podcast are general in nature and are for entertainment and informational purposes only. We encourage you to meet with a professional to discuss your specific situation, whether financial or therapeutic. That's all for now. I'll see you sooner. Remember, no matter what anybody ever tells you, you can have wealth in all of its forms. Believe it, and you will soon see it.